Central High has a tradition of excellence dating back to 1859. Let's continue that excellence here. I am your host, Ben Beckman. Welcome back to the Chatting at the Sea. I'm, of course, joined by Mr. Jon Flanagan. Flanagan, how are we doing today?
Fantastic.
Well, great. It's good to be together. Well, first, we have to give a little shout-out to our corporate sponsor, the Central High Foundation. Foundation is very happy for all those people who participated in Rock the Nest. Trivia things, did you get invited?
No, I don't think I did. I received an invitation. No one recruited me for a team this year.
Yeah.
It's unusual, but maybe they did the baby and everything.
Yeah. They're like, oh, we gotta hold off on that.
Right.
Well, they appreciate everybody showing up to that event. If you want to become a Generation C member, feel free to contact Josh at the Central High Foundation. You can make a recurring membership where you're donating things much like a Netflix subscription, $20 a month, $10,000 a month, whatever you prefer. They'll make that work. So reach out to the foundation to get that. All right, so let's dive into our episode. Mr. Flanagan, let's start with our first great question. What makes Central so special?
That is a huge question. It's hard to answer. I've been listening to the tier series here.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff. I was thinking about that this whole time. And I think it might sound strange, but the building itself, I think, has a lot to do with what makes this place so special. So when I was doing my master's work, one of the rabbit holes I went down was this kind of area of rhetoric called like cognitive landscapes. Sometimes they're called dreamscapes.
Yeah.
It's basically the idea that it's the rhetoric of a place, right? It's the idea that the entire physical environment of a place has conscious and subconscious impacts on a person. And our building, we're built first, on the original side of the State House, right at the beginning of Nebraska as a state. We're up on this giant hill, kind of overlooking everything around us. We've got Joslyn to the west, this giant marble palace, a world-renowned art museum. We've got Creighton just to the north. Our campus just runs right into theirs. Even as if you look to the east here, we're in the shadow of the First National Tower now. This giant financial institution in the state. It's just, we're surrounded by all these things. We're up on this hill. We've got this beautiful French revivalist Renaissance limestone building. To even enter the building from most sides involves climbing up quite a few stairs.
Yeah.
It's a humbling experience just to enter this building every day, right? And then we're surrounded by all these landmarks for this area.
Yeah.
And I think that, whether you are aware of it or not, just again, to enter this building is humbling every day. You feel the weight of it. You feel the history of it. It feels like you're doing something important here, whether you're a teacher, a student, any staff member. And I just think on some level, everybody just tries a little harder, just cares a little more than they would in other places.
Yeah, the light hits it on those certain days, and it's like, this is where I work. This is my day-to-day. And even if we break down, then there's you can talk more architecture, the giant windows that let in so much natural light, the hallways, the staff. You could break this down completely.
It's and again, it's not as crazy as it might sound because our alumni know this, right? We had a very generous donor ship in all this limestone from the original quarry for the new addition, which is equally, inspiring.
Well, it's a testament to the idea of like $22 million new addition.
Right.
They're willing to go the lengths. Oh, you can't just get any limestone. We got to go back to the quarry, back to Indiana to get this to get it going. The attention to detail.
It's not a superficial thing. It's an inspiring place physically, and I think that's reflected every day for everybody who enters it. So.
Well, perfect. Well, speaking of inspiring, you, of course, are inspiring, but you, of course, are the department head. This is your first year as the English department head. So what's it been like? What's it been like to make that jump? I know there was greatness.
Man.
The English department is no joke here. It's a pretty serious crew.
Speaking of weight, a heaviness, entering that office in 210's like, wow, there's the history, and even in this little space here. Yeah, it's been... It's been interesting. I love teaching. I've really only ever wanted to be a classroom teacher. So to make this leap into more of an administrative role. Of course, I still have classes throughout the day, which is important to me. I definitely always want to have classes. But the more administrative role's been definitely a learning experience. A lot more screen time.
A lot more emails, probably. A lot more paperwork.
I guess the biggest difference when I think about it is as a teacher, you can kind of you have your schedule, you have your agenda, your learning goals, your objectives, what you want to accomplish in a day. Of course, there's a lot of wild cards that get thrown into the mix. You don't know what the kids are going to do day to day, who's going to have done homework, who had a really bad night or day, a last period, and they're going to take it out on your class now, those behavior management issues. But you're still basically in control. It's your classroom. Those are your students. But now I sit down, I open my email at any point in the day, and surprise, here's a thing to deal with right now.
Yeah.
Or very quickly, it's going to push something else to the side. So,
well, and of course, sometimes then you have to take care of teachers who you get that email where they had that bad last period. They had that bad last experience too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, teaching's such an incredibly hard job. So to be in a support role for teachers now is also difficult, you know. There's a lot to support there.
Total whole nother element. Now talk us through, as I started this last question, the Central English Department is legendary. I mean, one of the best in the state. How are you keeping that greatness alive? How are you keeping that continuing?
One of the best in the state?
The best. I'm sorry.
In state, we might be able to go a little bigger.
The Mississippi, west of the Nile.
Right.
You know,
You said it. Right, west of the Nile. Man, yeah. I guess as a department head, you know, entering, and I taught, you know, this is my 14th year as part of the department.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I start from a place of just trusting the teachers, their judgment, trusting those professionals to look at the students in front of them and determine how to best serve them and get them where they need to be.
Yeah.
And then again, just support when they ask me for something. I do whatever I can to make that happen.
Well, that trust and support is such a good thing because it's like, hey, I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm going to let you do your thing. And I'm always here. It's a supportive trust type thing. You're going to build them up, and when they need you, they do. That's awesome.
Yeah, everybody has different strengths. We have a lot of amazing people in the department.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to let people play to their own strengths too. And that can inspire the kids. You know, if the teacher's passionate about something, it's a lot easier for the kids to get on board.
Yeah, totally. Got people like Marcy Mahoney, who's a legendary teacher, doing so many great speech things. You got Martha Omar bullying other teachers. I mean, everybody's got their own strengths.
I had a little
right?
run-in today, you know. It's hard. It's hard sometimes. Omar's out there, but
you gotta watch out.
I need that firm hand, you know.
All right, well, good stuff. Well, a big part of Central High, of course, is the style book that started so long ago, and this is a big piece of this. So take us through, what is the style book, even though it was written 1920?
Yeah, about then, I think, published, yeah.
So talk us through how that's still kind of a pivotal part of the English department.
Yeah, it's huge. It's iconic, of course, you know. It's still in every English classroom here. Written and published by Sarah Vore Taylor originally. It's a really powerful tool to provide expedient feedback to students, right? You can imagine, I mean, right now we have a couple teachers who have 200 English students on their load right now, which is too many, but yet those kids need the quality writing instruction that they come to school for, right?
Yeah.
So the style book allows a teacher to sit down and grade 200 papers and give the kids solid descriptive feedback and a good reference for revision. Yeah, so I mean, it's not the ideal where, you know, you would sit down with a person and really
totally.
dig in,
yeah.
the writing, talk about revisions, explore all the possibilities. We do make time for that, but you can't do it for every kid every time. Like,
I
it's
think of
literally
myself,
impossible. So
my honors class kids are doing a lot of essays and things over history, and for me to go through, and I'm not using the style book because I'm not in that club.
we're working on that. We're going to bridge the gap between it. I'm working with Mr. Wilson on that. We've got a plan for that.
There it is. I love that. It'd be so, especially like you said, the ideal world, you can sit down, have that conversation, talk them through, but to be able to do it quickly and to give good feedback is a huge thing because there's common things. I think of sometimes about capitalizing names of countries. Sometimes that's a thing that creeps in there. That's a common thing that,
Right.
this code, 1.67 or whatever it is.
And the kids internalize the rule, right? They're not just looking at a correction you made. They actually have to find the rule, you know, copy the rule down, and then correct it themselves.
Yeah.
And that forces them to really engage with it and learn and hopefully internalize that so they're better, you know, the next time around.
Oh, totally. That's great. Well, let's think we're, of course, in 2023, 100 years after the publishing of the style book. What are some updates? Obviously, you're trying to bridge the gap, but what are some things as we look in more in the 2000s? What's up?
Well, the last revision was about 8 years ago, I think, and that was just updating some examples just to make them, you know, language changes over time, issues of syntax change, words come in and out of style or fashion. So we just updated most of the examples, actually.
Did you put is turnt now in there?
Turnt has not yet made it. Not maybe. Maybe this next one. We have had a number of students express concern over, right now the style book doesn't allow for there as a singular pronoun, right? It's got to be his or her, according to the style book, which obviously can exclude people who don't identify on that gender binary. In fact, Charlie Yale, who's an excellent student journalist, did a pretty extensive study, a series of interviews of teachers and students.
Yeah.
Really researched the history. He now knows far more about Sarah Vore Taylor and the publishing of the style book and its history than I do. He really dug in and wrote a pretty impressive op-ed in the Register, arguing that in the next revision we should allow for that singular there. And I believe MLA already does too, the Modern Language Association Handbook, which is sort of like the main one you tend to use in English studies, literary studies, the humanities. So there's precedent for it. And yeah, that's a thing we'll try to get done in the next few years here, another revision.
Totally.
That, for example, is one change we would make to kind of reflect our evolving society.
It's so funny you bring up Charlie Yale, because I told him I was doing a show with you, literally third block, and I said, okay, Charlie, do you have any additions that I can ask Mr. Flanagan? He said, ask him what my grade is in X. Well, we don't want to say anything too good about you, Charlie.
Right,
in the
that's
show,
true.
So we don't give
There's always room for
away.
improvement, Charlie, if you're listening. But yeah, to listeners, jump on the Register website, seek out that article. I think you'll be impressed. Aside from his argument, there's just a wonderful history presented in the style book too, if you're interested. So check it out.
It's a pivotal, but kind of more than important than just the pillars that support the building. That's that structure that supports it too.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Well, my next question is a tough one. Who is the best teacher in the English department?
Oh man.
You have to answer carefully here.
Oh man.
You have to ruin relationships or build relationships.
Oh, man.
This is that pivotal moment.
There's so much excellence. My gut's telling me I should say Martha Omar because I fear for my
The
life.
Fear
That's
factor.
Oh man, I can't. There's no way. It can't. There's just too much
You're okay.
greatness.
That was
There's
a plug.
too much greatness.
That was a plug for Menten. Trying to get meant for you to pick Menten, of course, to be
That sounds like
your
her.
one. So talk about your relationship with Tracy Menten. I know you guys
Yeah.
are great colleagues. We talked about you on her show as well of
That's
you
right.
ascending to greatness. I talked about your relationship with her as a teacher.
Yeah, I believe we started at Central at the same time back
really?
in 2009. She, of course, was already a veteran teacher moving here from Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
I student taught here and was hired on at semester, so I was brand new. And I don't really remember like my first impression of her, but we gradually became friends. And I hit a point maybe like, I don't know, first, second, third year, where when I would run into a real barrier with my students, whether it was, conveying a concept or managing behavior, she kind of just became my go-to person. I would just go describe what I was dealing with, and she would always just produce these suggestions for me. They were just brilliant and amazing, and I would go and it would just work like magic. And it's still a lot of the framework of who I am as a teacher comes directly from just her kind of casual advice to me. So she's definitely a master teacher. I appreciate her flexibility, her responsiveness to students. She's a meticulous planner, but she has no problems throwing those plans in the trash if she gets in front of her kids and realizes it's not clicking, it's not working, they need something else.
Yeah.
And not everybody, that's hard. She does it at a very high level there.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah, an inspiring person.
Yeah. It's great to be brought up by somebody like that too, just to get that guidance, especially where mental will tell you what it is. They're not going to sugarcoat it.
Yeah,
for you.
that's true.
She's going to tell you what it is and what she thinks, and
That's so
take
true.
it or leave it. If you leave it, well,
Yeah.
don't ask me again.
Yep, and she's hard on herself too. I should say that because it's a two-way street. So
Totally.
she beats herself up a lot too, and you kind of point out like, yeah, but look at all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And she'll come around too, but yeah, she's just always pushing the kids, pushing herself. So it's a good person to be around.
That's important. Let's take a quick commercial break to do our Eagle shout-outs. Great list here rolling for us. Let's first give a shout-out to Central High teachers Rafferty and legendary teacher Scott Wilson, who were selected for a one-week program in Saipan to learn more about the World War II battle and what happened there. So very exciting for them, a trip to Asia there coming up this summer. Our next one goes out to Central High Choir. A lot of the choir soloists got a one-on-one master class with Omaha Opera. So very cool to see some of those soloists be able to work with some of the best singers here in the Metro. So great job, choir students as well. And our last one goes a shout out to the freshman mentors. The mentors got a master class as well for self-care and wellness. The freshman mentors, what they do is they're sophomores, juniors, and seniors who work with current freshmen to give them some support and give them some love and prepare them for what high school is about. So great to see those freshman mentors getting the skills and getting the opportunities to create even greater Eagles. Let's get back to our episode with Mr. Flanagan. Well, we look at 2023 in our world today. We have a lot of students who may say that reading and poetry aren't cool or whatever these kids say these days. So what do you say to students who don't have a love for reading and don't have a love for writing and things like that?
Just got to tell them they're wrong. That reading,
Straight to it.
It slaps, it's fire, it's turnt, it's lit. I don't know.
That's 5
I'm getting
turns.
older. I'm getting further back as I go.
5 turns you have to add to the style book next time.
Yeah, slaps needs to make it in there for sure. I honestly, I think this is, COVID was, kind of a nightmare for education in a lot of ways, but
yeah.
Maybe one positive thing I've noticed, at least anecdotally, is that it seems like students like reading a lot more willing to, or at least independently, maybe not what you're assigning them, but way more than I remember before, carry books around with them, will pop out a book and read it when you give them the opportunity, like to talk to you about books they're reading. So I think COVID, being home for that time, kind of helped reading make a little bit of a comeback for this generation. Poetry, I think, too, universally hated early in my career, not by the kids. And I would always frame it. I love poetry. I love teaching poetry. I would frame it as, I think most people are frustrated with poetry because they read it once. They want it to be like a novel or like a newspaper article or something where you read it once, you comprehend it, you can take something from it. But it's because of the economy of the word, because you're condensing so much meaning. You might condense a novel's worth of meaning into, a single page of poetry. Because it's so concentrated, you should expect to read it several times before it even starts to make sense, right? So I try to frame it as, think of it more like a song where you wouldn't just listen to it once and think, oh yeah, I've heard that song now. I know that song. I'm never going to hear that song again, right?
Move on.
Expect to engage with it over and over again and keep getting new things out of it. And that has seemed to make a big difference when I frame it that way. Kids are more willing to just take the time to read it multiple times,
break it down
and engage
into
with
chunks,
it.
yeah.
And they often find they like it. And I think, honestly, Instagram has helped poetry for this generation too. Because a lot of them follow these poets on Instagram. It's probably TikTok now. I don't know. I'm old. But they're more willing to engage with poet. All of a sudden, kids are read poetry before they get to me casually in their own life. And yeah, they find it on things like social media, like Instagram.
Wow.
So
that's cool. That's a cool way to see that. Especially if you take somebody on Instagram, you don't know if this person's alive or dead or where they lived or who they were. And if that's just posted behind a nice, pretty photo, it really can rebuild or have it reborn.
And I think they see people their own age doing, captions that are like poetry or are poetry.
Mm-hmm.
I sponsor it's called All Rights Reserved now. It used to be Louder Than a Bomb. It's the poetry club here.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm just amazed at what these kids come in and write, even on the spot sometimes, just week after week, and they perform it, and it blows me away. So
it's crazy. That's great. That's great to see you're keeping those things alive and keeping those things rolling. Well, let's talk about some really important things. You, of course, are a member of the band All Young Girls Are Machine Guns. With a band name like that, how much street cred do you get? Do you walk in and band poster and it's this guy gets it, he knows what's up, we better listen?
Yeah, you would. What I've got, feedback I've gotten. So first of all, I'm only a member, of course. I'm a mere sideman. I'm just the trumpet player.
Hey,
in this amazing soul band.
Hands to a finger,
right?
Or fingers to a hand.
Yeah, exactly. So I came to the game kind of late. It had already existed as a vehicle for years before I got to it. But I guess feedback I've received. Often people expect a punk or a metal band. So maybe some initial disappointment when we go into our Memphis soul stuff. But I think we win them over more times than not. They'll come up and say, man, this is not what I was expecting, but you guys are awesome. That kind of a thing. So, and it's a band name that's also a complete sentence and a metaphor. So that's pretty cool.
I love it. See, that poetry's coming back.
There you go.
You gotta listen to it more than once to really understand the
Exactly.
band. You can't just show up and
the name
whoa.
itself invites interpretation and debate. So,
Well, that's perfect. That's awesome. Well, teaching English, you're of course in that field, but you have to have a love of music to do that as well. Was music ever a calling for you beyond teaching English?
yeah, sort of. I mean, when I started my undergrad to become an educator, I started with studying music. I was going to be a band teacher. That was the plan. So I did that for 3 years. And it's incredibly exhausting to be a music major.
Yeah.
People don't realize just the amount. You're in a bunch of classes that are worth 1 credit hour.
Mm-hmm.
You're learning every instrument. You're learning to maybe I was an instrumentalist, but now I have to learn to sing, and to sing by reading music. You're playing music you're not necessarily interested in. You're studying it on an academic level, the history of it. It's pretty grueling. Of course, if you're in like marching band, that's 5 or 6 days a week,
All about it. Yeah.
out in the sun for hours, right?
Jeez.
Which I hate. I hate marching band, by the way. Sorry.
We will not tell
Sorry,
Chio
Chio,
not
no.
that one. Sorry, Chio.
I love jazz band. That's where my heart was in high school and in college. So I played in jazz band all throughout, and eventually in bar bands and stuff for fun. But I hit a point about 3 years in where I realized I was starting to dislike music, and that I should just leave it as a thing I do as an amateur, meaning like for the love of it, right? I wanted that to be a thing I had in my life that I loved. And I had several English professors who were kind of like, hey, you're pretty good at this. You should come on over to the dark side here. And I had been helping many other students, friends of mine in the dorms, write essays, revise essays, and realized I had kind of a knack for it, and it was fun for me. So after 3 years of studying music eventually, I switched over to English. So yeah, I guess teaching's always been my calling, but music was a big part of that too.
Totally. When you think of jazz band compared to, or playing jazz is so different. But it's that expression. It really fits really well with English because it's expressing yourself. While you can play notes and you can follow the structure and things like a concert band, jazz band you're doing riffs, you're doing different things, adding that expression, that talent. So,
and it's communication too, right? You're part of a conversation, hopefully.
Totally.
Yeah, I like to think of music is definitely my first love, though. Like I definitely think of music as a purer form of expression than language, like spoken or written language. So I feel like spoken or written language is always just chasing what music kind of does naturally.
Yeah.
But that's fun. That's fun too. So
that's what it's all about. Well, a few years ago, of course, you played in the Maha Festival here in Omaha. Take us through that experience on the big stage, side stage. Was it on stage then?
We were on the side stage. Yeah.
Next year.
Right. It was a back and forth thing, but one of the best days of my life, no doubt. It was Maha 2015. I just remember we drove the van up to the up behind the park there. They moved the gates for us so we could drive in to unload our gear. Yeah, no, we didn't need to. We're VIPs. We're artists. So yeah, they were catering to us, right? We pull up. There's actual roadies who show up and ask if they can carry some stuff for you, and you're like, what is this? Okay.
Careful with that.
And I remember one of the first things I noticed while we were kind of entering the backstage there in the morning was like, oh, there's just these piles of just these giant crates of gear, and they're all like labeled Modest Mouse, who like blew my mind in high school, and I'm still a big fan of.
Yeah.
And just like, wow, this is Modest Mouse's gear. They're playing here later tonight. We're backstage at this thing. And so usually the local bands go kind of early in the day. It's still kind of sparse. For whatever reason that year, I don't know what the deal was, but they put us at 4:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Like way later than the locals usually go. And there were legitimately thousands and thousands of people there watching us. So that was surreal. You see a lot of students out in the crowd.
Yeah.
That's fun.
You owe me an essay still.
They're yelling stuff. I'm trying to work here, kids.
Trying to work here. This side gig, totally different thing.
But yeah, I remember, hanging out backstage for a lot of the day. I sat on stage, kind of backstage, but while the Jayhawks played right before us. I'm a huge Jayhawks fan. They were a huge band for me in high school. I'd never seen them before, and I was sitting basically on their stage, listening to them through their own monitors. That was a trip. We played right after us, Always Played, who has become one of my favorite bands. They're coming back actually this year, which is kind of cool. So yeah, just a surreal day. We stayed all day, all night, watched Modest Mouse at the end from backstage.
Wow.
Connor Oberst, our own local rock star, and his whole entourage rolled up, and they were back there. I think he knows the guys in Modest Mouse too, but So we're kind of not on that level, but, you know, like adjacent to
Still there.
that level. So yeah, just a totally surreal and amazing day for sure.
Yeah, definitely a good inspiration for students in the future to
Keep practicing. Keep
aspire to be
practicing,
there.
kids.
Yeah, maybe you get lucky and get that 4:30 slot. Well, let's talk about the second best day of your life. You're, of course, a new dad.
Yeah.
That's probably the first. We'll
Right,
slide that one in there. It was totally the
I'm not
first.
saying anything controversial here. So
Your wife might be listening. My wife won't, but your wife might be.
the wedding, my wedding day is somewhere in there too, probably.
Somewhere in there, you know, that they all get a little
Why
muddled. after a
number?
while.
Why rank them? Just not necessary.
It's all good days. So what's it been like? What's it been like to have a daughter in your life?
Yeah.
That big change. You're not just a teacher and a musician.
Yeah,
you're
a
dad.
lot of change kind of at once. The department head thing, and then she was born,
Yeah.
and it all kind of hit in mid-June into July. I had to do department head stuff right away. I've got this tiny baby in one arm. I'm like on my laptop talking to Brent Larson on speakerphone. Like, how do I do this? But yeah, I mean, just, yeah, hugely transformative, of course. Yeah, it's crazy. She's different every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much fun. She's so funny now. She's more and more expressive as time goes. She's about 9.5 months right now.
Yeah.
She's actually, I mean, everyone probably thinks their kid is really cute and funny, but
True.
I think she's legitimately funny. Like, she has timing. She looks for audience reaction when she does something. There's a few weeks ago I was trying to change her to put her to bed, and she just my wife was in the nursery with me, but I was changing her. She just screamed in my face as loud as she possibly could, and then turned to look at my wife, who was laughing, and she repeated that process like 5 or 6 times. Just scream in my face, turn and get the laugh from mom, and just do it again, even louder. Turn and get the laugh. So there's some timing there. So that's been a trip.
I love it. I love it.
yeah,
Even it's been fun to see as the months go on, the different nicknames that you've.
Oh yeah.
I just love the post of the, hey, 6 months. This is the new nickname.
Yeah. Her name's Lucy, so there's a lot to work with there. It's a good time.
A lot of things to work with. Well, that's awesome. That's great. Well, let's wrap it up with our last question. What is your message to Central students, families, alumni, and Central community?
Oh man. That's such a that's a
open,
huge
it's like an
audience,
IB.
a diverse audience. Like, who is this audience really? It's everybody. It's our entire community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eagle Nation is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I guess we've had a lot of change at this institution. A lot to do with COVID. That was definitely a crisis, like I mentioned earlier, for public education. That was a hard time, and it's been kind of slow going, I think, getting back to what we would call normal. But I guess my message would just be that, you know, we're still here. We're still great. This institution is I think, as strong as it's ever been, and it's not going anywhere. We've got this tradition of excellence. It's a real thing, and it's not going anywhere. We are still excellent, and just I think they know that. I think Eagle Nation knows that. They're so supportive.
Yeah,
the students are proud to be here. But I guess that's it. I mean, that's the message.
Well, very good.
Trust and believe, I guess, to
believe.
quote a great leader.
There it is. That's great. Well, I appreciate you spending some time joining me here for chatting at the C and staying after school, and wish you best of luck in the future.
All right. Thank you. My pleasure.